welcome to the podcast. So today we have David, who's the founder of Australia's first tech unicorn and partner at OIF Ventures. So hi, David, would you be able to quickly explain who you are and what you do to the audience?
First of all, thanks so much for having me on the podcast today, Rui. But I am born in South Africa, immigrated to Australia as a chartered accountant in 1986, and landed a job in a computer distribution company, selling enterprise software, and probably the luckiest break of my life because I had no job satisfaction at work. I was paid badly and had no input into my job. And 9 months later, decided to start my own company called ComTech Communications, which was started in June 87. It was just at the start of giving away my age here, Rui, but started the local area networking era and founded that company in 1987. And sold that in 2000. We had 1,400 in the company at that stage, $700 million in revenue, no external debt, had been profitable since inception. And we sold that for an enterprise value at the time of just over $1 billion. Since then, I have literally dabbled in startups. And when I say dabbled, my job was to keep the money I've made, not to think, gee, that was easy and I could easily do this all over again. So when I say dabbled, I would back founders who I really enjoyed working with and maybe put in a small investment of $25,000 or $50,000 just to have an interest. And in 2016, the government in Australia changed the tax laws regarding making extremely favorable to invest in early stage venture capital companies, funds. And together with my partner, Jeff, who was actually my corporate advisor when I sold my company at ComTech, we founded a company called OIF Venture Capital. And today we've invested, we have 3 funds, which since starting, and Fund 1 is obviously our most advanced. We're really proud of the companies that we have and some of them that we've exited. So that was about a $37 million fund, and we've already returned after fees 3 times capital. And there's still some unbelievable companies in that portfolio, including Advanced Navigation, which has just raised money at a valuation of about $450 million. We invested in that at a valuation of $22 million. We have Go One that's just raised money, and when I say just, in the tough or challenging times now, they've just raised money at a $2.8 billion valuation, and we invested in them at a $27 million valuation. So we're very proud of that fund. But what we're most proud of is really when we set up the fund, we really believe that our fund is built on what we call the 3 Fs. The first one is the founder, that we absolutely 120% committed to the founders, that we are, we see money as a commodity. There's a huge amount of venture capital in Australia as there is globally today. And we see money as the commodity, and really our job at OIF is to say, what value can we add for a portfolio company aside from just writing a check? The second is we're a fund. People have entrusted us with their capital, and we have a commitment to be good custodians of their capital and to ensure we deliver exceptional returns. And so, as I say, we see ourselves having 2 customers, our founders on the one side and our investors on the other, and somehow we have to keep them both really happy. And the third F is, we always say we're a fund without a D. We want to work with people that we want to work with. And I think I really am proud to say that, if you were pitching to us today, Rui, I'd say to you, we have 35 companies we've invested in. You can speak to any of the founders and ask them what OIF has been like to work with. So we aren't the biggest VC fund in Australia. We would never will be. We don't want to be. We know what our sweet spot is about. Our fund size will always be between $100 to $150 million. And but what our goal is to be the most respected, and the most respected means being highly regarded by both customers, being our founders and our investors.
So firstly, I wanted to say a big congrats to you guys on your Fund 1. And also, I think some of the biggest takeaways for me is to be the most respected. So I wanted to understand from you, what is your investment thesis of OIF Ventures?
So I think the investment thesis goes back to a fund without a D. The first thing that we absolutely focused on is uh, is the founder. Is this a person? So we invest pretty early. We're not a seed stage investor. We want to know that there's a product, that there's customers, and there's some revenue. So there's not a lot of data when we invest, and really what we're doing is we're backing the founder, and it's really how we think we will work with the founder, how we think the founder will work with us. Do we believe that that founder will have the ability to attract those first anchor customers, those convincing staff to leave a Google or to leave an AWS and say, you've got to come with me on this journey and bring exceptional people along for the journey. And so because we found the focus, we do not have a fund thesis. We basically, I always say, we have at the one extreme, we have cybersecurity companies. At the other extreme, we have two guys that are digitally transforming the funeral industry, and then everything in between. So we have fintech, we have marketing tech, we have ed tech, we have prop tech, and because our thesis is founders, and as I say, and that seems to have served us well over the first 7 years of our fund, and I can't see that changing in the foreseeable future.
That's really great. And my next question to you is, so what's it like building a brand as a VC versus, say, as a business?
I think it's fairly similar, Rui. I think that at the end of the day, a lot about business is building a brand that people trust. And I think, as I said, we have to earn the trust of both our founders and our investors. So we've had a great outcome in Fund 1, but as you and your listeners would know, that any fund manager, of which we're one of them, you're only as good as the last fund. So we raised $100 million in 24 hours for our third fund after distributing a fantastic exit in our first fund. And as I said to our team, as long as we keep doing what we're doing, there'll be a fund 25. The minute we forget what our values are really important. And probably in terms of building a brand, I'll just give you an example that, at the end of last year, I sent all our founders an email wishing them compliments of the season. But I also added a company values and mission that was generated by ChatGPT. And you and your listeners can give that a go. And I can guarantee you it'll be 80% similar to what every company out there says. Nobody says, we don't give a damn about customers and we're not committed to teamwork and we pay badly. Everybody says the same things. A machine can write anything, but only people can deliver on those words. And I feel whenever you're building a brand, whether it's for a business, an operational business, or for a fund, your actions have to match your words. And really that, I feel, when I ran my own company, I always used to say my biggest fear was standing up in front of our team. And I'd always say the same thing. We genuinely take care of our customers, our staff, and our business partners. Honestly, I can honestly look you in the eye and say, my biggest fear was people saying, what a load of junk. They don't give a damn about people. They don't give a damn about customer service. So whatever you say as a leader of an organization or as a manager, you have to make sure that you back that up with your actions. And that's the only way you can build a credible brand, in my opinion, in any industry, if you want to build a trusted brand.
Yeah, I loved your last point on building a brand as similar to building a VC and business brand as being very similar, and action having to match your words. So my next question to you is, how do you sift through the high quality signal from noise? This is a listener question from Sparse Sago.
I'm assuming, so if I missed the question, please feel free to re-ask the question. But as a VC fund, we see lots and lots of opportunities. And our thesis, as I say, is we invest early, but not too early. So if we see someone sends us a pitch deck and it says this is the product or the service or the solution that we're going to be building. We say it sounds fantastic, but too early for us. Keep us posted. If someone says I'm raising $20 million at a $300 million valuation, we've missed the boat. So in that case, we have our sweet spot. If that was not the question is more about leadership or management. A good leader has to know. You have to know and understand the people that you're leading, and you've got to understand what's fact and what's bullshit. And I apologize, I can't think of a better word.
Yeah, that's a great point about having a sweet spot. So now I wanted to pivot more into your book. So in the preface of your book, you had mentioned about Australia as a scale-up nation. So could you expand a bit more on that?
So I've been unbelievably surprised so if you look at Australia in about 2015, I think there's probably about $100 million worth of capital in the ecosystem for startups to deploy. So if you had a great idea, getting money was unbelievably difficult. In 2016, it was the Turnbull government that changed the laws where they made extremely favorable to invest in this asset class. So, for example, if you put in $1 million into early stage venture capital fund like ours in this year, you could set off $100,000 against your tax bill straight away. If we turn that $1 million into $4 million, that $3 million is 100% tax free. So it became extremely tax effective for investors to deploy capital into this asset class. Really, forgive me now, I've got off track. Just tell me the question again, how I got onto the...
So the question was, so in your book, you had mentioned about Australia as the scale-up nation.
Yes, scale-up nation. I apologize. So that's one of the disadvantages of having founded a company in 1987. There you go. So I've been unbelievably and pleasantly surprised to see how quickly Australia has emerged as an innovation country. I mean, there's so many unbelievable success stories, and I think if you look at a different geography, look at Israel. Israel was known as the startup nation because for many years Israel would build great companies and sell them off really early. They would build a company, the founder would sell the company to Cisco or Microsoft, and I think that's why there's such a huge presence of multinational companies in Israel, is because it was through acquiring companies for 20 million, for 50, for $100 million. What I think Australia's been unbelievably successful at in a very short period of time is actually not selling out early, is building companies like Atlassian and Canva and WiseTech and so many others, Appen and Rocked. I mean, there's just such culture and safety culture. There's such a long list today of Australian companies that have really gone from building the technology in Australia, and Australia represents 2% of the global market. And Atlassian has succeeded because they're a dominant player in their category in the US, and that's why they dominate every other country in the world in the market in which they operate. And Australia's done extremely well in building scale up. You have companies with even in today's market, $40-50 billion valuations. WiseTech is probably $10 or $12 billion valuation. So, and there's just huge evidence, and I think that as more and more companies succeed, more and more founders get confidence to take their companies to the next level, and I think Australia's earned its place as a really credible provider because of what Atlassians and Afterpays and Canvas have built and established for our ecosystem.
I think this was an extremely fascinating discussion about Australia and Australia as a kind of hub for innovation. So my next question is also from your book, and it's like, how do you create an exceptional team of people, and some of the lessons and mistakes you've learned from hiring people at ComTech and also from OIF?
I think that, when I founded my company, I was 26. And I think probably the smartest thing I ever realized was that there were some things that I would never, ever be able to do. I'm not a technical person at all. So no matter how many technical courses I went on, I was never, ever going to be able to write a line of software code. I was never going to be able to install a network. I'm an accountant by profession, and I knew if I had to do the books, I could, but I didn't want to. I wanted to focus on sales and marketing. And so really what I decided really, really early on is I was going to surround myself with people in those areas that I could never, ever do, that I didn't want to do. And once I did that, I was going to honestly let them run their part of the company. That I really believe that as a leader, and I was a leader of maybe the entire company, but people, for example, in the tech team, they had to have a vision that was far better than mine on how to run a tech support team. They had to be hands-on managers. They had to be HR managers. But I really empowered them. And so for example, we had a very big distribution business. And I may have said to our distribution, our distribution manager, all is what I want to know is that if we get an order at 6 p.m. tonight, I know with 99.9% confidence that our customer will get the right goods in their office, no matter whether they're in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, or Adelaide. That would have been my instruction. How they did that was why they had the job. They had to have a vision for how do I execute on making sure that we deliver legendary customer service to our organization. So I really believe empowering people and really giving you, as I said at the outset, my lucky break was I wasn't paid well. I had no job satisfaction. And my boss was almost like, leave your brain at the front door. We'll pick it up on the way home. And really by, at 99% of the great ideas at ComTech came from people other than me. So people were empowered. They felt recognized. We recognized everybody in the company, no matter where they worked in the organization, that if you talk about being a team, that we put our money where our mouth is. When it came to bonuses, we paid generous bonuses to everybody in the company, no matter whether they answered the phone on reception, whether they packed a box in the warehouse, or they were our best salesperson. Not everybody got paid the same. Unfortunately, that's where communism didn't work, and sometimes salespeople get paid more than technical people or whatever. When we had a company kickoff, every single person in that company was invited to join us for the company kickoff. So we put our money where our mouth was, in terms of saying, if we are a team, and no matter where you work in this organization, you're a critical part of ensuring that we deliver what our focus was on, delivering legendary customer service. We had to make sure that people felt that their jobs were valued and recognized as part of the process. And I talk about in my book the 4 different types of people that you can have in an organization. And it's easy to explain if I had a whiteboard, but it's if you take a quadrant and divide it into four squares, and on the one axis you had culture or values, and the other one you had performance. The best people you can have in your organization, top right quadrant, those people who meet their objectives and share the values of the organization. The second person to deal with is the first person onwards and upwards, and just making sure that you do whatever it takes to keep that person in your organization. The second one is someone who doesn't meet their objectives, and nor do they share the values of the organization. And that person you have to remove from the company as quickly as possible. Tough person is the fantastic team player in the bottom right corner, but they're not meeting the objectives. What training can you give that person to help them meet their objectives? And probably if I made a mistake, I probably erred too long on being, I said fair first, tough second. I think I probably erred on being too fair too long. And sometimes when you know it's not going to work out, sometimes you've got to make those tough calls. And no decent person wants to make people redundant or ask people to leave. So it's not an easy thing, but you have to do it if you want to preserve the culture and the performance of the company. And the toughest person to deal with is that person in your top left quadrant, meets their objectives but doesn't share the values of an organization. And honestly, as an older founder or investor, my advice to anyone is you have to get rid of those people, as tough as it may seem. And actually, I'm always obsessed with management and leadership, and I love there's a show on Netflix. So if anyone's, by the way, watched Ted Lasso, the real life version of Ted Lasso is it's on Netflix, called All or Nothing. It's about the manager or the coach at Arsenal, and the 2021 season he took over. He was a young manager, made some really tough decisions. He fired his best player. He was the captain, the best player on the team, the top goal scorer. He got a lot of flack from supporters because they didn't win as often as they should have been winning. They won some good games, lost some games. But when you look a year down the track, where's Arsenal coming in the Premier League this year? They're coming first. And I really believe it's because of the changes that he made a year ago, which were unbelievably tough changes. As I say, meet objectives, but doesn't share the value of the organization, and said, we don't tolerate that kind of a culture in the company, and put his money where his mouth is and said, if I fail, I fail. I'd rather fail than doing something that I believe in than go down.
I think that company culture is at the core business. That was my biggest takeaway. And also to have inclusion and teamwork. So I wanted to understand from you, what were some of your lessons and mistakes learned from building a unicorn company? And then my follow-up to that is, what would it take to achieve unicorn status?
It honestly takes a huge amount of, it's not just one thing. So if I always say, if I look at, I always say, I have 4 rules for success, and the top one is luck. And I always say, as I say in my book, I could write a book on lucky breaks, and it would be a whole lot thicker than the book that I actually wrote. And everybody said, oh, come on, Dave, you must have worked hard. And I said, of course I worked hard. That's a key ingredient of any successful founder or any successful organization is unbelievable. We worked unbelievably hard. And third of all, you need an amazing team of people. And as I say, I can't emphasize enough, surround yourself with people with skills that can never, ever happen, or with skills that you may have but don't really want to focus on. And finally, I always say you have to be as focused as a one-eyed dog in a meat factory. I often see founders deviating, and probably the best example that I can give is, if you look at Steve Jobs, when he came back to Apple, I think Apple had 100 products when he came back to Apple. He cut it down to 4. And you can see where that company is today. So that sometimes when I work with founders, I see them, they want to add new products before the existing products are even established in the marketplace. And I think Apple's an absolute prime example of, the iPod became the tail that wagged the dog. Steve Jobs then said, what could possibly kill the iPod business? That's the phone. When the phone was printing money, where else can we leverage our technology or the iOS platform? What about a bigger platform? And we'll call that the iPad. And then a couple of years later, what about making a smaller platform, and we'll call it a watch? So I think if you look at Apple's product range, it grew as existing core products were unbelievably profitable and unbelievably successful, and said, where else can we deploy our capital and our cash that we're printing because of the success that we're having in the market with our current core products? So as I say, there's lots and lots of things. You have to, in my book, I always say, nothing happens until you sell something. You can have the best product, the best idea, but you have to get it to market. You have to get people using their product, telling their friends about the product, and you only will build a unicorn if you're growing regularly every year. You have to consistently over a long period of time deliver exceptional results, and that's the only way you're going to build a unicorn. And especially today, where capital markets are a lot tighter than they were a year ago, and companies, investment companies like ourselves, want to know that you invest in a company that the founders know how to sell their product, customers love buying the product, and that if they're growing year on year and executing religiously.
So my biggest takeaway is to build a unicorn, you have to grow regularly and to deliver exceptional results. So it was an absolute pleasure to talk with you on the podcast today. And thank you so much for your time.
I really appreciate you having me, and I hope your listeners have enjoyed it. Thank you so much. You have a great day.